People who have grown up in poverty then manage to get out. What was the biggest culture shock for you? I realized rich people do drugs for fun, while my mates from deprived background does drugs to run away from sorrows or reality. Drugs are escapism for the poor, and entertainment for the rich, and ruin for the middle class. Actually buying things, if that sounds weird. I'm so used to saving and not having, that I forget that I can afford a new pair of glasses if I break my old ones. After being in a position or poverty, you learn to deal with stuff that most people would view as inconvenient. I've been teased on a few occasions, because I'll go without stuff even though I can get things for myself now that I'm an adult. This 100%. When I got my big break and landed my first comfortable salary job after being in poverty all my life, this concept was literally blowing my mind. I had become so used to only buying the bare essentials and spending an absolute minimum on myself that buying things was basically a foreign concept to me. For a while at my new job, I pretty much didn't change my spending habits at all in any way, shape, or form. One day a friend of mine pretty much called me out on this, being like, "You work hard for your money, you should spend some of it on yourself, reward yourself." The statement really made me think. I went to the store where I ended up buying some much needed new clothes and various other things I needed around my apartment. After returning home, I panicked and checked my bank account to see what kind of horrible mistake I had just made. I looked at the number and finally made the realization. That really wasn't that big of a deal. Guess this is what it's like to have money. I feel guilty when I buy myself new shoes, even if mine were falling apart. Before we had a computer, and the school teacher requires us to submit a paper, my classmates would hand in their papers printed out. As for me, I would have to write down the paper. But because I have poor handwriting, I will ask my older sister to handwrite my paper neatly. And the first time we bought a computer, which came with a free printer, I was really excited to make school assignments. It was overwhelming, really, to know that you can write your paper on a keyboard, format it, and then print it. And then there's so many handwritten fonts. Even if it was not encouraged, I typed the titles of my papers in handwritten font. My friends thought it was funny, but I didn't care. I think the biggest shock for me is when I realized that if I ran out of milk or bread, I could just go get more. I don't have to wait a month to be able to afford it. Also, going on vacations out of state. We never could afford it growing up. I work with a kid who seriously thinks nothing of just taking a week-long vacation to Britain. We're in the US. He's so shocked that I've never been out of the country. I can't afford a friggin' passport, let alone to leave the country and go on vacation. Heard a story from a friend about a girl he knows whose mother took her to England so she could decide whether she liked it or not. If she liked it, then she would stay for a week-long vacation. Otherwise, she would come back to the US the next morning. The fact how fast and how blind you become to the plight of those who are still poor. It's like that world becomes somehow invisible to you. I'm not rich, but I managed to get by and I own some real estate, etc. Going to the dentist is a no-brainer to me. I just make the appointment and pay the bill without giving it any thought. Recently, having had a chat with a single mom on almost minimum wage, she has education and works for the government, not McDonald's, which makes it even more sad somehow, who was scraping together money, cent by cent, to get a tooth pulled out, no money to repair it, and it had gone beyond repair. I realized it. I'm blind. Doesn't matter, I had days in my youth where I had no food. I'm still blind. That makes me completely paranoid about politicians. I don't really think they are aware of the things they are blind to, and the fact that some politicians wave their meager and poor background around like some sort of vaccine against that sort of blindness no longer has any value to me. I feel like this is part of the human condition, not restricted to social class. How quickly we take to our own advantages and forget to give back. It's important to remember where we came from and share our wealth. The way people talk. Just hearing people talk about things like drinking green tea and how they bought new kitchen countertops this weekend and casually dropping shit like that time I was in Thailand. Seems silly, but at first it was weird hearing people talk like the people on TV. I also realized I have an absolutely filthy mouth. I didn't realize the way I talked was so bad, but am by far the most inappropriate person in my workplace. Having a freaking car, man. Seriously. I have no idea how good it feels to just be able to go wherever I want, whenever I want, and not bum rides off of friends, family, and public transport. Most children fantasize about this and receive the same culture shock when they're teens. But imagine not having a car for half of my adult life and still having a job and having to go to college. It's fucking nice having a car that I paid for with my hard-earned money. I didn't have a car until I was 27, so I know how you feel. Public transportation is terrible in my area, so I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning just to make it to my job at 8:30 a.m., and then I wouldn't get home until after 7 p.m. How fucking delicious vegetables are. We never had fresh produce growing up, maybe canned, if it was donated to the church, but even that was rare. Hearing people complain about how they don't like vegetables blows my mind. When you're so used to eating everything preservative-laden or on the verge of going bad, fresh food tastes amazing. Yes. It was like a light bulb went off in my head when I realized, for the first time in my life, that I could buy fruits and vegetables to eat for dinner if I wanted. My childhood dinners were cheap meat and potatoes or pancakes. Going from every dollar being important to fairly cost-insensitive is a big change. It's great not to sweat meals out or worry about bills, and being able to save fairly large sums for investment or major purchases. It's nice to be able to buy the nicer things that will last instead of the shittiest version of everything and needing to replace lots of shit, and always wishing I could upgrade. It's nice having a frame for my bed, an apartment of my own, and not having to go to a laundromat. It's fantastic that I can help my family and give them gifts or money or pay for stuff when we hang out. It's just nice. People who tell you money isn't that important have either always had it or never had it. It's pretty fucking important. People sending their kids to summer camps and paying for music lessons, sports lessons, private tutoring, etc. I never had music lessons growing up because we couldn't afford it, never learned how to swim, never went to summer camp, never did anything interesting. Now my kids have all those things and it just seems like they're so privileged to have those opportunities to learn so much cool stuff and have so many great experiences. I remember getting so upset when I was probably 12 because all of my friends were so excited to go to their summer camps, and I knew that I wouldn't ever be able to go. I went to Girl Scout camp once on money I made from selling cookies though. That other kids ate regularly, needed to bathe, and come home each night. The other families in my neighborhood were all in the same boat, moving all the time, new neighbors continuously, rent late, no power, etc. I lucked out. My dad saved up for a private investigator, got custody of his 3 kids, and suddenly we had to go to school, wear real clothes, i.e. not just a dirty shirt, no shoes. We had dinner together. It was a change I'll never forget. My family was quite poor when I was a young child. We were never homeless, but we did sometimes skip a meal or two or maybe live without electricity or running water for a while. I got used to that lifestyle and I took care of the things I had and I learned to repair things that were broken. I joined the military after high school and I couldn't believe all of the people my age who would waste food or throw things away that weren't even broken. I also found it quite amusing when the barracks had no hot water, heat, etc. Many people lost their minds. My family was only kind of poor, but it still boggles my mind the amount of food and useful things people throw out. My ex seemed to purposely leave a few bites of food or the last few sips of a drink to throw out, and it drove me crazy. Even though I am more than comfortable financially now, I still grab things that I think I can fix up out of the trash. Grew up in a relatively poor town. Then I ended up going to a private college on a scholarship, and people actually have nice parents who they want to spend time with. How little people understand poverty, that they don't realize it isn't the fault of the poor, that it's an entirely different way of thinking and existing, that no one cares about you. Not the government nor any of its schemes actually give a damn about helping you. How disheartening it is to be the scum of the earth because of something you can't control. Before my family became homeless, I felt as if lower-income families squandered their benefits and did nothing to improve their lives. I had this philosophy that if you really wanted to escape poverty, you would do so with hard work and willpower. After I became homeless, I realized how ignorant I was about everything. Simple hard work and willpower isn't enough for a system that makes it hard for you to get out of poverty. You can't get your own apartment because you don't have proof of income, even though you can pay the down payment and rent for the next few months, so you're living in extended day housing and motels, which makes you waste that money. Charities reject you because you're not a single mother raising young children. Living without health insurance is a gamble. I think I'm wasting more money being poor than when I was somewhat more financially stable. In the end, you really can't get out of poverty using just hard work and willpower. It's almost as if you need divine intervention, hoping that one day you meet the right person who can get you a job, or you find a $20 on the street that can help pay for groceries next week. Anything. I've come to realize this makes me sound lazy. I'm not. I still work hard every day. I just hope one day I wouldn't have to worry about how I'll pay for groceries, or the next place I have to stay. I just need a break. I am in my 40s, so this dates me a little. My mother always switched price tags when we shopped. This was before barcode scanning. I thought it was normal, and did it myself until I found out it was illegal while in my early teens. Also, a huge culture shock was how wasteful the world can be. We used everything until it was absolutely useless, and throwing food away was a sin. I was absolutely floored when I met people who looked up to their parents instead of a celebrity, coach, or whoever. Always having food in the house. I'm blown away that at any point I can make myself something with fresh ingredients. I still eat lettuce that's almost on its way out, and dairy that passed expiry dates though. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.